Hey, you've tuned into Math with Mr. C. This time we're doing part 2 of lesson 14.5 to make this more simple. Moving on in 3, 2, 1. We're going right into our teacher example. I do not have a homework checking section of this video, and we do not have vocab. So, percents and numbers. You will encounter 3 different types of questions during this lesson. One is, what percent is 16 of 40? This is just a type of question. We're not just going to answer 3 questions. Here's another type of question. What is 25% of 16? I see we're finding a percentage of a number. And what number is 25% of 40? So first, I want to know, is the answer to this going to be a percentage or is it going to be a number? What percent is 16 of 40? When I see that, what percent, I know my answer is going to have a percentage sign. On the second one, what is 25% of 16? I see is. I'm going to treat that the same as if it says what number. What is 25% of 16? That's just going to be a number. No percentage sign. For here, what number is 25% of 40? Same thing. It's just going to be a number because I don't see the word percent here, or the symbol. It's not asking for a percent, therefore it's asking for a number. So here are 2 questions from the previous slide that we are going to do in front of you. What percent is 16 of 40? Or how much of the pie is 16 of 40? How big of a part is 16 of 40? So when there's a question like this, then I put 16 on top and 40 on bottom. How big of a part is this of the bottom number? And before I do anything else, I want to simplify. Can I divide 16 and 40 by the same thing? I can divide both of them by 8, getting 2 and 5. Am I done now? Well, I want a percentage, and I know that because I see what percent. Well, I need to go to a decimal, and then I can make it into a percent. To make it into a decimal, I divide. And I'm done with my decimal answer. And to make it into a percent, I know the percent is on the right side, so I need to go 1, 2. It is 40%. 16 is 40% of 40. Next one, last one for teacher example. What number is 25% of 40? I did not cover this type of question in the first video or first lesson of 14.5. You will encounter these, and they could be a little more difficult. There's just a different strategy to solve it, and it's not that hard. And it's actually my favorite way to solve these problems that I used in high school. Whenever you see a problem like this, you're going to set up 2 ratios with an equal sign in the middle. Clue word of Valentine. 25% equals x over 40. How did I get that? Well, what number is 25%? So this is 100% of the total. This is 100% of the total. And what number is 25%? Well, if these are equal, I will solve this. So what do I do at that point? Well, I'm going to do the opposite of x divided by 40, which is multiplying both sides by 40. At that point, on the lower side, I just get x, and on the other side, I can simplify. I can simplify again, dividing by 2. And I can simplify again, up and down, dividing by 5. So now I have 2 times 5, which is 10. And I just found that 25%, or a quarter of 40, is 10. So if I put 10 back in here, 10 out of 40 is equal to 25%. As I said before, you do not have vocab notes. Now we're on to example 1. We know that means I'm going to write the problem for number 1 and 2. Mr. C is going to do the work, and I'm going to follow along. First problem is, what is 10% of 87? As I look at the problem, I want to know if I'm going to have a percent answer or if I'm going to have a number. It says, what is 10% of 87? I see the word is. I know that's going to be a number. It does not say what percent of 87. It says what is 10%. So I know I'm going to have a number. So we're writing, what is 10% of 87. Can I simplify this at all? Yes, I can. I can simplify up and down, crossing off a 0 there. Can I simplify further? No, I cannot. I'm going to multiply straight across. 1 times 87 is 87. 10 times 1 is 10. Well, what am I supposed to do now? Oh, I'm going to divide to make it into a decimal. 10 goes on the outside. 87 goes on the inside. I'm going to make a decimal there. I might need to go further. I'm not sure. I know if I need to, I'll go 2 decimal places over, and then I'll stop there. 10 times 8 is 80. 10 times 7 is 70. And I end with a 0, so I'm done. I'm going to bring up my decimal, which means I found my answer. 8 7/10 is 10% of 87. What number is 20% of 80? I see the word number here. That means that I'm going to have a number answer, not a percent answer. What number is 20% of 80? 20%. I have a question mark up there. What number, these are equal, is 20% of 80? 80 is 100%, so it's equal to the 100%. But what number is equal to the 20%? I'm going to change my question mark for a second to a variable. Now I changed it to n. I read this n divided by 80 equals 20%, or 20 divided by 100. I want to do the opposite of whatever's on the same side as n, dividing by 80. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 80. This cancels out on this side, so it's just n. When you divide and multiply by 80, it cancels out. But over here, let's see if we can simplify. I can simplify this way. I can simplify this way. And I'm done simplifying, so I just want to know what 8 times 2 is. That's 16. Did I find my answer? Yes, I want a number. What is 20% of 80? 16. For example 2, you're going to write 2 questions. Pick one of these that you're going to do. They're a different way of wording the same question. What percent is 12 of 38? Is the same question as what percent of 38 is 12? If you need to read that a couple times to yourself to understand that and think about it, feel free to pause the video and do that. The next one is what number is 15% of 300? I see that it says what percent. That means the answer to this one's going to be a percent, and the answer to this one's going to be a number. I'm going to show you the answer to number 1 in 3, 2, 1. So we should have set up number 1 as what part of the whole is 12 of 38? What percent of 38 is 12? Can I simplify that first? Yes, I can. I can divide by 2. Can I simplify further? I cannot. Therefore, I'm dividing. And I made this one just a little bit more difficult than the usual one that I gave you, so that when these come along, you can be prepared to do that. 19, how many times does that go into 60? Well, I know that 20, in my head, 20 times 3 is 60, so let's try 3. What is 19 times 3? $57. Bring that down. 19 can divide into 30 once. Oh, look, I am twice past the decimal. Mr. C said I can stop at this point. So I'm going to bring my decimal up. Do I have my answer as 31/100ths? What do I want? Oh, what percent? What percent? So I need to make this into a percent. So I'm going to move it 1, 2, and it is 31% is my answer. Now moving on to the second one. What number is 15% of 300? Alright, we're going to set that problem up this way. 300 is equal to 100%. What number is equal to 15%? I know I'm going to do the opposite of g divided by 300, and I'm going to multiply both sides by 300. Once I'm done with this, I know this cancels out. Over here, I just have g. And on this side, I'm going to try to simplify. I can simplify by 10. I can simplify that again. And then I'm just going to multiply straight across. 3 times 15, which is 45. And I found my answer that 45 is 15% of g. There is a different way that you'll see a question. You don't need to write this down. But one way it could be is 45 is 15% I see those are equal because it says is. 45 is 15% of what number? What number goes on bottom? You could also have a variable that goes on bottom when it is listed this way. Here's independent or partners practice. Please write the actual problem down, trying to solve it before you see the answer. I'm going to show you how to do number 1 in 3, 2, 1. For number 1, I say what percent. That means there's going to be a percent answer. First, I make a ratio, 15/50ths, and then I try to simplify. I can divide both of those by 5, and I cannot simplify it further. So, because I'm finding a percent, first I need a decimal. Bring the decimal up. I have 0.3. In order to make that into a percent, I need to move it over twice. 30%, and that's my answer. 15 is 30% of 50. Now I'm going to do number 2 in 3, 2, 1. What is 20% of 72? I see the word is. That means that my answer is going to be a number. 20% of 72. Can I simplify it all? I can simplify those zeros up and down. Can I simplify further? I can divide this by 2 and this by 2. And I cannot simplify further, so I'm going to multiply across. 2 times 36 is 72. 5 times 1 is 5. I know I want a number answer, which means I want a decimal. I'm not at that yet, so I need to divide. Add my decimal and a 0. And I found my answer. What is 1/5 or 20% of 72? That is 14.4 or $14.40. Number 3, what number is 35% of 50? I see the words what number. I know that we're going to have a number answer. Here's my problem set up. 50 is 100%, and what number is 35%? I'm going to do the opposite of dividing by 50, which is multiplying by 50 to both sides. These cancel out. Now I just have x, and I'm going to find my answer by doing this side. Can I simplify it all? I can divide this by 0. Can I go further? I can divide this by 5, and this by 5, and I have 35 halves. Once I divide that, I will get my answer because I know that I'm going to get a number. 35 halves. And I got an answer of 17.5 when I divided 35 by 2. My answer is 17.5. Now for number 4, 18 is 12% of what number? 18 equals 12% equals 12 of what number? Now I'm going to show you guys some really weird stuff about math. So my question is this the same problem as this? I see I flipped this one, which means I did it to this side, and I also flipped this side. I did the same thing to both sides, therefore I didn't change the problem at all. It just looks different, and in fact it's a lot easier because I don't have to mess with this dividing by x stuff. So now it's x divided by 18 equals 112. I'm going to do the opposite of dividing by 18, which is multiplying by 18. This is going to end up being x, and over here we can simplify 12 and 18 by 6. So I have 3 and 2. I can even simplify further. 100 can divide by 2, 50, and this will be 1. 50 times 3 is 150. So we found our answer, 150. 18 is 12% of 150. Thank you for watching this video. If you did not get 100 on the Khan Academy practice, I invite you to try that now, and you should be much better. After you're done with that, you can do one of these two options. Thanks for watching this, and you're awesome.